We're back on Broadway talking to the star of one of the funniest shows, certainly on Broadway at the moment, and Steve Rosen's in Spamalot. Congratulations on such a great show.
Oh, thanks. That's nice of you to say.
It is so funny throughout. It made me laugh out loud, and not many shows do that. They did a great job, didn't they?
In doing Spamalot, I think so. You know, The Producers is a fantastic show, and it's Mel Brooks, but I think there's lots of funny people out there who are writing great material, and, you know, with comic minds like Eric Idle and Mike Nichols behind it, and, you know, actors like Tim Curry, and I know Chris Sieber's going out to London to do it. I know that it's, with great minds like that and really funny people, you're going to create a good product, and, you know, the show is very enjoyable. Audiences are still loving it. We're a year and a half in. They still love it here.
It is amazing to me that it's so big over here, because you would have thought Monty Python was not as big here as it would have been in the UK. Yet the whole audience were behind everything. They understood everything that was going on. It must be a huge hit.
I would say that a large population of teenagers and young adult males in the United States, the only thing they really know about the United Kingdom or England in general is Monty Python. It's part of the cultural landscape for boys of that age to watch these rebels who are being silly and being rebellious. So I think and that's primarily who our audience is in the United States. It's young men, which is rare for the theater as well. You're used to, when you talk about Broadway theater, you're used to, you know, older ladies, you know, at the Wednesday matinees. And our audiences are lots of guys dragging their girlfriends out to see, you know, Broadway, which is kind of a switch.
This is one of those shows where I like to ask, what's your favourite joke in it? Because there's so many funny lines, laugh out loud, belly laugh kind of jokes. What's your favourite?
And my favourite laugh comes in the You Won't Succeed on Broadway number. I don't want to spoil anything for the show, but there's a moment where in a song where everyone on stage yells, "Hey!" And at the exact same moment, they're also pointing to a prop that is, in fact, hay. Which it's one of these jokes that I love, not because it's so clever and silly, and if you're sort of looking out at the audience, which I can sort of do in that moment, it's a joke that sort of washes over you that you don't get right away. You sort of see the audience understand what it is that they're laughing at. It's simple yet very clever. Yeah, the staging of that number in general, it's Casey Nicholaw, our choreographer. He did an amazing job in that it's just constantly wiping across the stage. There's one thing to look at, and then there's something else to look at, and all of it is funny.
Now, you weren't really meant to be in this, were you? You were just doing the read-through, and you did such a great job, they offered you the role. That's unheard of, isn't it?
It's one of those, like, legendary stories, and for me especially, because it happened to me. But it's true, I was working for 2 years, actually, as a reader for The Producers. I was reading auditions for that show for Tara Rubin, who cast it in the United States. And what an audition reader does generally is people come in with scripts and with a script from the show and songs to sing, and there's an accompanist provided to play the music for you to sing, and there's an actor provided for you to read the scenes with. And I actually had an audition for the show that got sort of pushed back, and they lost the reader for the day, so they called me and asked if I could come in early. And so on my first day, it was going to be just an audition for nobody. I was in the room with Mel Brooks and Susan Stroman and Tara Rubin, these amazing people. And after the first day, the director said, "Well, I love you. You're so great. You're too young for this show, but we would love it if you would be the reader for our show whenever we have auditions," which was a great way to sort of get an education in the theater. And then different shows have sort of come and gone, and I was doing it for Spamalot, and I never really anticipated ever getting a job out of it. It was just sort of a great education. I did it for 3 years, which is the equivalent of a master's degree at university here. And I was doing it for about 2 months, reading with people that came in, all kinds of amazing people, and I'm a huge Monty Python fan. My background is improv and sketch comedy. And so I knew all the bits backwards and forwards. And on the last day of auditions, and Mike Nichols, by the way, doesn't do auditions the way that most people do now. Usually it's just in a little studio. Mike rents out entire Broadway theaters for you to stand on. And and you're sitting there, and in the dark, you just hear this legendary voice that you know from the comedy albums. "Do it again," you know. It's amazing. And so on the very last day, and I had never, really been on a Broadway stage before. I'd done a lot of theater and lots of other stuff, but never anything on this scale. And on the last day, as the last person left, and Mike said, "Now, my boy, it's your turn. Do you have any music to sing?" And fortunately, a friend of mine and I had written out the penis song from The Meaning of Life that Eric Idle sings. And so I sang that, and they laughed, and a half hour later I got a call from my agent saying that they want to put you in this big Broadway musical. So I fell into it, quite backwards, and I was very green when we started, and it's been an amazing learning experience for me, not only in terms of, doing a show, but how to work with other people and how to make comedy fresh and lasting, good work, how to make it lasting over a long period of time.
presumably you just want to get on stage and do it. It must be quite frustrating. How does that work when for months on end you're kind of reading scripts and then getting used to the set and getting in the theatre and practicing and practicing? Surely as a performer, you just want to get on and do it, don't you?
Oh, rehearsal is golden. You need the rehearsal, especially for a new show. Because when we started Spamalot, all we basically had was this draft, this very interesting and funny draft that Eric had written based on the movie. But there was so much, and we didn't know how it was going to end. We didn't have a real ending for the show until about 3 days before we went to Chicago to start teching it. And the way these sort of processes go is, stuff gets cut, and there was Bedivere got a lot of his stuff got cut, and the mother's stuff got cut. They wound up cutting the witch burning scene, and and there was a song called "Burn Her" that was all about the burning of witches, done very sort of Broadway. It started out very macabre and Sondheim, and then it got into a very sort of Broadway, the cow had a number at the end of Act 1. So rehearsal is very important because you get to understand how the show is supposed to work, how it's shaped, especially something as big as this show.
What about being on Broadway then? What is the feeling like when you see the big frontage of the theatre and you can see your name up in lights, literally?
Yeah, well, I'm a big nerd. I love it. I never get tired of it. I really, to the day I die, I could walk in front of it and see my name up at a theater and my picture up there and people waiting in line to come see a show, and I will never, ever, ever get tired of it. Just for me, specifically because Broadway was such an important part of how I grew up. I went to a performing arts summer camp every summer that also had, sports and other things. But we did plays, and I come from upstate New York, Rochester, and my father would take me down to see a show once a year. So it was a big deal to come to Broadway, and I remember what it was like to anticipate coming to see one of these shows, knowing that we had tickets for a hit show on Broadway that's supposed to be really funny. And then as I'm walking in the theater and I see everybody in line getting ready to come in and laugh, I'm raring to go. I'm never tired of it.
When you're in a show that's just launching and you're rehearsing it and you're thinking this is good, this is bad, whatever, are you always thinking in the back of your mind, what are the critics going to say on the opening night? Because really that's going to either make you survive or it's going to make you close the next day. I mean, you've only got to look at Elton John's recent musical here. I think it lasted 8 days after the critics completely slated it. Do you get involved in that, or do you just completely forget about it?
There are some actors that say that they never read reviews. This is my first Broadway show, so I read every single review. I would Google it. I would find reviews from people who wrote on their own chat boards. I wanted to hear what everyone had to say about it. But I heard a great quote from a friend of mine. I was talking with this actress, Mary Testa, who's amazing, that she said that I can't read reviews. And I said, why? And she said, because the bad ones always hurt me too deeply, and the good ones are never good enough. So you can't take it too seriously, but it's interesting to see if the critics are going to like it. And it doesn't always necessarily matter if the critics like it, if the people like it. That's enough to sustain a show as well. It's happened here a lot of times.
Not very often, though. I mean, there's one show in the West End, We Will Rock You, which still gets -5 stars in every review. They hate it. It's one of my favourites. I just think it's great. The public think it's great. It survives. But mostly in the UK, if a show opens and it's slated, it's gone within days. It does happen a lot here as well, doesn't it?
It does. I think it does. You have a show like Mamma Mia, while no one is ever going to say that is the greatest literature ever written, the music is catchy and poppy, and people...
I thought that was written by Shakespeare.
No, clearly not. But... it's really entertaining, and they must be doing something right because it's sold out every night. But if it pleases the masses, if it's something that people really want and hunger for, and for ABBA, it's very theatrical, so I think that works really well. And a lot of the Disney stuff too is that Disney does such a nice job in packaging what it is that they create that, despite what critics say, they can still make it work even if the critics don't like it.
Now, this musical Spamalot's got a Guinness World Record-breaking thing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we have the Guinness Book of World Records record for the largest coconut orchestra. Which means that we, one day out in Schubert Alley, got a huge number of people, I can't even remember the number, got together, and everyone was given coconuts, and they all clomped along with Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. But I'm sure you know that the world record for world's largest coconut orchestra is a very sought-after title, and lots of shows have tried it in the past. We just beat Dirty Rotten Scoundrels by one coconut. So,
Steve Rosen, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on Spamalot. It's here, it's on Broadway, and it's coming to the West End as well. And let's keep our fingers crossed that it's there for a long time, because it deserves to be.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. It's in Vegas and on tour, too. Spamalot will be everywhere. You won't be able to go anywhere without hearing people whistling